protesters all across America. In fact, the Attorney General, Bill Barr, just announced this morning that in Chicago, the murder rate has already been cut in half since Operation Legend began. But for months, all Joe Biden ever talked about was peaceful protesters. As the American people watch businesses and communities in our major cities burn. Now, last week he came to Pittsburgh and finally condemned what he called violence in every form it takes. But right after that, he criticized law enforcement. I mean, it took him 3 months to condemn Antifa. And he still hasn't called out his campaign staff or his running mate for raising money to bail out violent criminals. And he's never called on Democrat mayors to get their cities under control. I mean, the truth is, Joe Biden had doubled down on the policies that are leading to violence in our major cities. Undermining support for law enforcement has real consequences. It emboldens those who would sow chaos on our streets. And it demoralizes the men and women who serve in law enforcement. I mean, that's probably why after 7 days of protests in Rochester, the chief of police and the command staff all resigned yesterday. In fact, at least 6 chiefs of police have resigned in major cities since the 1st of June. So let me be clear. We are going to stand with the men and women who serve on the thin blue line of law enforcement, whether it's in Rochester, in Portland, or in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. We will always back the blue. I mean, that's probably why the largest police union in America, the National FOP, just endorsed President Donald Trump for 4 more years. Cops are for Trump because Trump's for cops. Joe Biden, well, he says America is systemically racist and that law enforcement, in his words, has a, quote, implicit bias against minorities. Now, President Trump and I know we don't have to choose between supporting law enforcement and supporting our African-American families. I mean, we can support law enforcement with more resources for better training and also support improving the quality of life, education, jobs, opportunities for our minority families in our cities. From the first day of our administration, we have done both, and we will keep doing both for 4 more years. But I got to tell you, when he was asked whether he'd support cutting funding to law enforcement, Joe Biden replied, yes, absolutely. But under this president, we'll always stand with those who serve in law enforcement. We're not going to defund the police, not now, not ever. So in 3 short years, we rebuilt our military. We revived our economy. We stood for life and liberty. We stood for law and order. And America is strong again. America was respected again. Our liberties were more secure. And in those first 3 years, only 3 ways you can describe it. It was jobs, jobs, jobs. I mean, it's amazing to think that with less taxes, less regulation, more American energy, and fighting for free and fair trade, businesses large and small across this country created 7 million good-paying jobs. In fact, the President and I are most proud of the fact that wages rose at their fastest pace in more than 10 years. And in fact, they rose most rapidly for hardworking, blue-collar Americans. The forgotten men and women of America were forgotten no more. When Joe Biden was vice president, America lost 200,000 manufacturing jobs. And remember the last president 4 years ago, Mike? He actually said that those jobs were never coming back. He said, quote, "What magic wand do you have Well, we didn't need a magic wand. We just needed President Donald Trump in the White House. 500,000 manufacturing jobs created in just 3 years. And none of that would have been possible without the strong support of our allies in the Congress. And I got to tell you, if there are two more tenacious, principled conservatives or champions for Pennsylvania in the Congress of the United States, I can't think of them. Congressman Mike Kelly, Congressman John Joyce, thank you so much for fighting for Pennsylvania and fighting at this president's side. So we created the greatest economy in the world. At the end of our first 3 years, more Americans were working than ever before. In a word, we made America great again. And then the coronavirus pandemic struck from China. Now, the people of Pennsylvania deserve to know that before the first documented case of community spread happened in the United States, President Donald Trump took the unprecedented step of suspending all travel from China. It had never been done before. And I can tell you, as the head of the White House Coronavirus Task Force, that action saved untold American lives. And it bought us invaluable time to stand up the greatest national mobilization since World War II. At the President's direction, we marshaled the full resources of the federal government and the full resources of our free enterprise economy. Now, our hearts go out to all the families that have lost loved ones during this pandemic, including the more than 7,000 families still grieving here in Pennsylvania. I want them to know and you to know they've always been on our hearts. And they're in our prayers. But we're continuing to work our way through this time as a nation. We've made sure that our tests were available across the country, 800,000 tests a day. We've made sure that our doctors and nurses had hundreds of millions of personal protective equipment. And with tremendous ingenuity, we've been developing treatments that are saving lives all across America. Even though Joe Biden said no miracle is coming, we're on track to have a safe and effective coronavirus vaccine this year. All of our scientists say it's not if, it's when. And we're driving toward it. We're working toward it with incredible American ingenuity. That's why it's so irresponsible that Joe Biden and Kamala Harris have actually started to question whether our administration can even produce a safe vaccine. And last weekend, Joe Biden's running mate repeatedly said that she would not trust a vaccine produced under President Donald Trump. Now, that's an insult to thousands of dedicated scientists and researchers who have been working around the clock to save American lives. I mean, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris should stop playing politics with American lives. They should stop undermining public confidence in a vaccine that will save American lives, and they should thank our great research companies, thank our scientists, and thank our president for working tirelessly to get a safe and effective vaccine to the American people this year. So with all we've done together, we're slowing the spread. We're protecting the vulnerable. We're saving lives. In the midst of this pandemic, President Trump also worked with leaders in both parties in the Congress. We literally secured more than $4 trillion in direct aid to America's families and a paycheck protection program that saved 50 million American jobs. And I promise all of you, every day until the day comes that we put the coronavirus in the past, we're going to put the health of America first. But because of the strong foundation President Trump poured and the unprecedented aid that we provided to families and businesses, after losing 22 million jobs at the height of this pandemic, The American comeback is underway. We've added 10.6 million jobs back to this economy in just 4 months, including 530,000 jobs right here in Pennsylvania. We are opening up America again, and we're opening up America's schools. So we've gone through a time of testing, but soon we're coming to a time for choosing. The choice in this election has never been clearer. The stakes have never been higher. I mean, it's amazing to think, in the middle of a global pandemic, Joe Biden wants to raise taxes by $4 trillion. Well, we cut taxes across the board for working families and businesses, and we're going to keep cutting taxes for 4 more years. Joe Biden wants to bury our economy under an avalanche of red tape, like his own version of the Green New Deal. This president, we've actually signed more bills cutting federal red tape than any president in American history, and we're going to keep right on chopping for 4 more years. You know, I heard Joe Biden's in Michigan today, talking about made in America. But you know, the truth is, for decades, Joe Biden's been a cheerleader for communist China. In fact, he wants to repeal all the tariffs that President Trump imposed that are leveling the playing field right now for American workers. And Joe Biden even criticized the president's decision way back in January to suspend all travel from China. Our president, when we took office, half of our trade deficit was with China. President Trump made it clear. The era of economic surrender is over. We stood up to China. We put jobs and workers in America first, and we're going to keep standing strong until we level the playing field. And it wasn't just about China. I mean, where Joe Biden voted for NAFTA so many years ago, and in the wake of NAFTA, we saw 60,000 American factories closed in this country. Thanks to President Donald Trump, NAFTA is yesterday, and the USMCA is here to stay. It's a win for Pennsylvania, it's a win for workers, and a win for farmers. But I don't have to tell most of you gathered here that when it comes to energy, President Donald Trump has been a champion for American energy independence. We ended the war on coal. We unleashed American energy, and now the United States is a net exporter of energy for the first time in 70 years. Joe Biden and the radical left want to crush American energy and crush American energy jobs. They want to raise the cost of electricity for every household and business in Pennsylvania. I mean, last week Joe Biden went to Pittsburgh after months of campaigning on a plan to abolish fossil fuels. I heard him say, quote, "I am not for banning fracking." Well, maybe he just forgot what he said before. So let me help him out. I mean, the people of Pennsylvania deserve to know. When Joe Biden was asked in July of last year, quote, "Would there be any place for fossil fuels, including coal and fracking, in a Biden administration?" Joe Biden said, quote, "No. We would make sure it's eliminated." When he was questioned by an activist if he would ban fracking, Joe Biden said, and I quote, "I would love to." And last March, in a debate, Joe Biden said, "No new fracking." You know, here in Pennsylvania, some estimates show that ending fracking would literally cost 500,000 jobs. But that's apparently not a problem for Joe. Because he was asked in a debate whether he'd be willing, and this was the question, whether he'd be willing to sacrifice hundreds of thousands of blue-collar jobs for the sake of their radical environmental agenda? And he said, quote, "The answer is yes." And about this time last year, he even said to a supporter, I guarantee, we're going to end fossil fuels. I mean, the truth of the matter is, we should take Joe Biden at his word and make sure we have 4 more years of energy independence, 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. What Joe doesn't know is that America's future depends on energy independence. So I promise you, all you gathered here, all the great workers at Penn Energy, whatever you may hear over what happens between now and Election Day, Joe Biden, the Democratic Party, and the radical left are going to work to abolish fossil fuels, but we're not going to let it happen. With President Donald Trump in the White House, we're going to have more fracking, more American energy, more energy independence for this generation and for generations to come. Problem. Yeah, it's just one of the reasons why we need 4 more years of President Donald Trump in the White House. I mean, 4 more years means more jobs. 4 more years means more support for our troops and our police. 4 more years means more energy independence. And it's going to take at least 4 more years to drain that swamp. You know, every day President Trump has been fighting to protect the promise of America. Every day our president has been fighting to expand the reach of the American dream to every American of every race and creed and color. I've been there with him every step of the way, and I can promise you, he never stops fighting. And President Donald Trump has never stopped fighting for you. So now it's our turn to fight for him. It's on. It's on, Pennsylvania. So I need you to bring it. I need you to let these people go find some shade. Give me a big round of applause for these Penn Energy team. What a great team. What a great team. Thank you, men and women. Thank you so much. And thank you all for coming out today, but I leave you here with a challenge, folks. I got up this morning. I think there's like 55 days left to Election Day. So we got to put our head down and we got to go tell the story to all of our neighbors and friends. And we got to have faith, okay? I mean, we got to have faith in the American people. As we see the other side laying out their radical left agenda of more taxes, more regulation, less support for our troops and our police, departing from our most cherished values and liberties and ideals. And you see a president that's standing up for everything that's always made America great. We got to go have confidence. I truly do believe, standing here in Freedom, Pennsylvania, every time the American people are given a choice between more freedom and less freedom, they choose more freedom every time. This is a freedom-loving nation, so go talk to your neighbors and friends and tell them freedom's on the ballot on November 3rd. And have that other kind of faith, too, that in these challenging times, when it seems like there's more that divides us in this country than any time in my lifetime, I still believe that there will always be more that unites us than could ever divide us, and chief among those things is faith. And so on this one, I just encourage you to, if you occasionally bow the head and bend the knee, be a good time to do it in the next 55 days. And on this one, though, I'm not so much talking about praying for our team or for a cause or for a party. I'm just saying, Pray for America. Pray for all the American people. Because America matters. And prayer matters. And I truly do believe that if His people who are called by His name will humble themselves and pray, He'll do like He's always done in the long and storied history of this great nation. He'll hear from heaven, and He'll heal this land. This one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. So I have faith. I'm going to let you all get out of the sun. I thank you for such a warm welcome. I just know if all of us do all that we need to do between now and Election Day, we're going to have a great American comeback. We're going to make Pennsylvania and America stronger and more prosperous than ever before, more energy independent than ever before, more grounded in our highest ideals, and more secure at home and abroad than ever before. And I just know that when we return Congressman Mike Kelly and Congressman John Joyce to a new Republican majority with Sean Parnell in the Congress of the United States, and when we re-elect President Donald Trump for 4 more years, and with God's help, we will make America great again. Again. Thank you all very much. God bless Pennsylvania, and God bless America. Let's go get it done.
All righty. It is election season, as we are less than 60 days away from the election. And we have Vice President Mike Pence in a battleground state of Pennsylvania. We'll continue to bring you the live coverage happening across the country. From Pennsylvania, we go all the way across the country. And now let's go out to LA County for this COVID-19 update.
Unusually low numbers of new cases. This is due to the holiday reporting lag and to the fact that many testing sites were closed due to the extreme heat. This does bring the total number of cases in LA County to 249,859. These cases do include 10,957 cases reported by our partners in the city of Long Beach and 2,443 cases reported by the city of Pasadena. Among our total cases, we're reporting 1,656 confirmed cases amongst people experiencing homelessness. There are currently 936 people with confirmed cases that are hospitalized. 33% of the people who are hospitalized are in the ICU, and 18% are on ventilators. We've investigated a total of 1,707 residential congregate settings and non-residential settings with at least one confirmed case of COVID-19. Currently, we have 827 ongoing investigations, and we've closed 880 investigations. The total confirmed cases in our institutional settings is 33,220. This includes both staff and residents. 16,821 of the confirmed cases are among residents, and 16,399 are among staff. I am sad to report that 2,705 residents in institutional settings passed away from COVID-19, and 2,442 of the people who passed away and lived in institutional settings were residing in our skilled nursing facilities. Of the 61 reported deaths today, 9 were people who died and were living in our skilled nursing facilities. And to all who are grieving, we extend our deepest condolences. We're reporting 3,609 confirmed cases at some point in jail facilities, 3,199 among people who are incarcerated, and 410 among staff. There are 251 cases in the state prison, 190 among people who are incarcerated, and 61 among staff. There are 758 cases in the federal prison facilities, 742 among people who are incarcerated, and 16 among staff. And there are 145 cases in the juvenile facilities, 62 among youth, and 83 among staff. Almost 2.4 million people have been tested in LA County and had their results reported to the LA County Department of Public Health, and 10% were positive. I want to, in closing, just acknowledge how much we depend on all of you, our businesses, our institutions, and our residents, to get us through this pandemic. Preventing infections that result in people becoming seriously ill and perhaps dying is something every resident and business in LA County must help us by taking some responsibility. I do want to also note that if you were potentially exposed to COVID-19 over the holiday weekend, I'm encouraging you to get tested. For example, if you were in a super crowded area this weekend and people near you were not wearing their face coverings and you were not wearing your face covering, you should get tested. If you were around someone who was feeling sick, you should get tested. And if you were with somebody who's tested positive for the virus, even if they never felt sick, you should be getting tested. Testing sites are open and appointments are available. And while you're waiting for your results, it's important to note that you need to quarantine. Stay home and stay away from other people, especially from people who are at great risk of becoming seriously ill from COVID-19. Thank you, and now we'll take your questions.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you wish to ask a question, please press 1 and then 0 on your telephone keypad. You may withdraw your question at any time by repeating the 1-0 command. If you are using a speakerphone, please pick up the handset before pressing the numbers. Once again, if you have a question, please press 1 and then 0 at this time. And first, we'll go to the line of Christine Lazar with CBS 2. Please go ahead.
Hi there. So you put out your guidelines for Halloween, but what about enforcement? Will the county be enforcing this? Will there be ramifications if people do go out and trick or treat or do gather in large groups or have festivals, things like that?
Dr. Ferrer. Yes, thanks so much. I appreciate the question. I also want to note that our guidelines have been slightly revised, so we'd ask that people go back and look at them to distinguish between those activities that are not permitted by the health officer order. That includes events, gatherings, parties. Those are just not allowed. They're not allowed for anything, not for birthdays. If you're the only activities that you can have a party or a gathering for are with those people that are in your household. Trick-or-treating, we're highly recommending that it not happen. We don't think it's an appropriate activity during a pandemic. We've always really relied on sensible actions taken by the majority of people who live in our communities. There's no guarantee when you go trick-or-treating that your child goes up to a house where the person who opens the door is wearing a face covering. And when you don't know the people opening the door, there's no guarantee that they're not sick and that the candy that they're passing out that they've touched may not be safe for you to want your child to be sharing. So these for us are very sensible steps that we're asking people to take. Some activities are not prohibited under the health officer order. Other activities we think don't make sense during a pandemic because they increase risk, particularly for children. So I urge people to go to our website, look at what the recommendations are. We do offer lots of activities that people can do that offer a fair amount of safety because we think it's important that we find ways to celebrate not just Halloween, but all of the holidays that really enrich our lives. But during a pandemic, our ways of celebrating do need to change. I'll take the next question.
Thank you. Next, we'll go to Ryan Carter with LA Daily News. Please go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So, Doctor, just on that same theme, assuming we stay on the trajectory we're on, and we get to a lower tier even by, say, Thanksgiving and ultimately Christmas, do you foresee similar guidance and directives on those holidays, similarly to what you've suggested today regarding trick or treat?
Thanks a million, a great question. And